Today I'm sitting with Ross at the gym in Cotting School, Lexington, Massachusetts. Hi, Ross.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Thanks for welcoming me in your school. What do you do here?
So we rent space from the Cotting School. We have a long-standing relationship with them. My son went here. We do adaptive program for them, and this is where we do gait training for people with involved gait issues. People who had stroke, people with cerebral palsy, people with MS, a range of people, and trying to improve their gait with a device that we've invented and we use extensively here, and we're hoping to manufacture it sometime soon.
What is gait training?
Oh, we're getting right to it, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'll have to go back here.
When his son Josh was born with cerebral palsy, Ross made a commitment to include his child in everyday life. That grew into a larger mission, creating Access Sport America, an adaptive sports program that rethinks what the world expects people with physical disabilities to be capable of. As our conversation unfolds, our stories begin to echo, his as a parent, mine as a sibling. I'm Léa Hirschfeld, and this is episode 10 of Out of Sync, exploring life through disability, one story at a time. New episodes drop every Tuesday on all platforms. Transcripts are on YouTube, and it's now time to grab a cup of your favorite drink and enjoy the story.
We've been doing adaptive sports for a long time, and maybe we'll get to this, but we found that in training people with disabilities who have issues with walking, that all the training in the world on peripheral or outside exercises to improve strength or to improve range have little or no bearing compared to just walking with good form on a treadmill. And that's often done with a unweighting system where people have a harness on and they're kind of hung from the ceiling and unweighted. And the typical long-standing tradition was for people to sit on the side of a treadmill and hand manipulate people through a good gait pattern, good walking pattern, which is laborious and it's imprecise. And there's some expensive machines. They're about $200,000 to $400,000. And we've invented something which is going to come out to about $5,000 and you can use on any treadmill, and it gives you enough exposure because it's so inexpensive. It gives you enough exposure so you can do it enough to truly change. If I go once a week for 6 weeks, I'm not going to change my gait much. But if I go 2 to 3 times a week for 8 weeks or 10 weeks at a time, there's significant improvements in that. And we're appealing to neuroplasticity. This is the ability of your body and your neural system to kind of rewire itself and accommodate people when they're trying to regain function.
How did you start working in that field?
In this field? So now we'll go way back.
Let's go.
So I grew up in Tenafly, New Jersey, actually, and I loved the thought of windsurfing. This is back in the 70s, and I found an ad for a windsurfer, and I forced my friends to go down to the Jersey Shore and go windsurfing one cold and rainy day. And the other guys did what we call the Viking funeral, where you go straight out on windsurfing, you can't get back. And I took to it, and I just, the holding on to the wind was quite a feeling. Over time, I just loved this sense of the sport and hoping it would be available to more people as I got into it. And I wasn't able to really verbalize that until I went to seminary and I studied to become a minister, something that everybody thought I should do, but I never thought I would be cut out for. But in my training, especially with people at Old South Church in Boston, I was taught about being inclusive and a sense that if everybody couldn't come along, it wasn't worth taking the ride. And found myself at odds with that, being involved heavily in a sport that was pretty exclusive. So when I got my first that I owned windsurfer in like 1983, I started accosting people on the beach pretty much and saying, "You look like you have a disability, want to go windsurf?" It's really, and no one ever hit me, but we got a fair amount of people, especially with mild ambulation issues, out on boards and things like that. And then 3 years later, my son Joshua was born with cerebral palsy and spastic quadriplegia. So early on, they were telling us that, your son, you might want to think now about, limiting your heartbreak and putting him into an institutional setting, right? And instead, we made this very conscious choice that we were going to do everything we could for him to give the best parts of our life to him, whether he liked it or not. so eventually he became our chief test pilot in doing this. So he was kind of born into the right or the wrong family, depending on how you look at it, because we already had this kind of trajectory for making sports like windsurfing accessible to a lot of people with disabilities. He, by default, became our chief test pilot. And I guess the expression in the United States is that some people have children to plow the back 40. It's like farmers would have kids, so they would plow the 40 acres in the back, right? So we joked that we had kids to work and be chief test pilots. Our daughter Hannah became one of our team leaders over time. But so Josh and I eventually did these windsurf marathons. We figured out a way to get Josh going, and even though he couldn't stand independently or even in a stander for more than like 10 minutes, when I had him lean against me on a windsurfer, we found that we could go for hours at a time. And so we most notably did a 10-mile, maybe one of the most dangerous but the hardest thing that either of us ever did in our life, even to date. He was about 8 years old. And we went a mile out into Cape Cod Bay and back for 3 hours. And there were big swells. You're looking at 2 to 3 foot chop, which is pretty big when you're out in it. And at one point, which is kind of interesting, is we were at the marker a mile out, and the sail came off the board. And of course, we both fell in. And so I have two hands, but I have Josh to put in one hand, I have the board to hold on the other, and the sail in the other. So it was kind of hairy. And one of the great things about Josh is he's got a great perspective. Maybe not conscious, but I was panicking. He just started laughing at me. He was just cracking up. It's like, I'm like, we're gonna die, and we all have life jackets on, but we're floating around and there's nobody to help us. And he just helped me by, it's okay, we're gonna get through this. If we had to, we could paddle back. And somehow, I draped him over the board. We got the sail back on and we sailed back in. And that's kind of a telltale about how Josh operates. And to this day, he's still our chief tester of things. And he works for us in giving us feedback and how this new device we're talking about, the gait trainer, works as well. So this long story about our life is, after that we got national attention because of these kind of marathons, and we were on the cover of the Globe, and we were on shows like Good Morning America with our friend Dr. Tim Johnson, who's part of these camp communities that you know as well as I do. And that notoriety got us some sponsorships, and we started our program in earnest. I think we first called ourselves United States Integrated Windsurfing. Then we called ourselves Windsurf for people with disabilities. And then because what we brought to windsurfing, we saw spread over to other sports, we started calling ourselves Access Sport America. And we were finally incorporated in 1994. And then I retired from ministry. I was a minister for about 20 years, retired to do this full-time in 2001 till now. One professor I had in seminary used to say that we're physicians of the soul. He had an elevated sense of who we were, and that stayed with me. And we found that with the new gains people had in their seeing of themselves as athletes could spill over to training them for higher function. And that's how we eventually got to this gait trainer, because we started training people in the off season when they would do our sports like Hawaiian outrigger canoeing and stand-up paddling and surfing and kayaking and windsurfing. We would capitalize on that new sense of self and have them train for higher function. And just walking great on a treadmill has unbelievable benefits, especially for how people see themselves. If you're in a wheelchair all the time, and you get up for an hour, it feels great. It's not for everybody. I'm not saying we're imposing this on anybody, but the people who want it really enjoy what we do.
How do you think sports and sportsmanship affects people on a daily basis?
And that's a terrific question. In popular sports talk, people praise great competitors, and I'm not sure that I'm there with that. I think a great competitor is often someone who doesn't know how to lose, and I think your esteem and your sense of self is really improved when you know how to get things in check, and you can find little victories even in a loss, and not necessarily have to find esteem by beating someone else. So we love competition with self. We also love, we do have competition. We like to hold people to a higher standard. So we don't want to just say we all win. We don't want to say everybody's a winner, but in the other sense, we don't want people who have to live and die by beating someone else. And we have a sports camp coming up in Florida, and the good and the bad thing about this is that by the end of the week, everybody is so into these competitions that we have. It's bad sometimes because people get a little bit too competitive, but it's good in that the alternative is people just not caring or not holding the bar high enough. We build these systems so everybody is equally valued on a team, and it's real, right? The team success is built on anybody, like my son being held up by me and walking, kicking a soccer ball, as you being a superstar right next to him. The team is built on both of those people succeeding. So competition is great, but it has to be, I think, kept in check.
And that we can't long for the same things or the same results or the same goals. It's about challenging what we think are our abilities.
Oh, I so agree, yeah. When we do sports, you should be challenged as much as any of our so-called athletes, right? And there should be a point where I realize that we all have these challenges, and we're going to try to put those challenges in front of you and meet them head on as a team.
When was Josh born?
1986.
How old were you?
Me? Oh, gosh. Well, I'm really old now. I'm 66 now, so 30-something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was Josh your first child?
Yeah. He was in a NICU, an intensive care unit, for about a month and a half and had swelling, and he had a brain bleed because of that. And
how does cerebral palsy occur, or how did it occur for Josh?
So, as I understand, cerebral palsy is any kind of brain injury at or near birth. And so we know we have some people, friends of ours, who their son was fine until a couple weeks after his birth. He was bit by a dog and had brain injury then, And so we're not sure what happened with Josh or with my wife Jean, but I do know that when he was born, it was awful. We were rushed in, and I guess everybody has their awful stories like this. But when the nurses asked me, they knew it was going to be a boy. They said, "What's your son's name going to be?" And then a doctor shook his head like it wasn't worth naming this child. That was brutal. So that was our low point, coming to those other people after who said that you need to put him in an institution, to now where he's a really great kid. But the effects of cerebral palsy could be simply someone who has a little of a speech issue or a slight issue with using one of their hands, to full-on quadriplegia or tetraplegia and real cognitive delay and deficit, right? So as you saw the other day, Josh, very talkative guy who perseverates on certain things, and Josh will say, I'm going in the truck, and that could be about 5 different things about how much he loves trucks, meaning he doesn't want to go someplace or something like that. But on other points, he's less abstract, very very articulate and understanding. I think with all these populations, there's a wisdom that people discount, and in our culture, people use a lot of slurs. There's racial slurs and there's LGBTQ kind of slurs and things like that. But as a society, we don't do really well with people with disabilities. There was the don't use the R word kind of a campaign, but there are so many words that are used by very popular and liberally minded folks that nobody ever questions, right? And things about people, if I'll use them crudely, but like crazy or moron and things like that, or spaz. These are things that people say, I don't mean anything, but they're used at the expense of people that we love. Not just my son, but people in this community who are just wonderful. And I'm not going to say everybody struggles with this, but it's a part of their life, and it's a part of who they are, and it's a throwaway punchline for people. It's a drop the mic thing when you do these things. And some of the wisest, smartest people, I don't like to say that people are smart either, but because we value that so highly, but some of the greatest people in wisdom of the soul and wisdom of the heart are people like this. And that's a wisdom you can't necessarily quantify, or it can't be measured, but it's profound in the experiences of this community. So I went way off on that, but does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Do you remember how it went with your wife? Because I guess it's not what you expect when your child is born.
No.
Do you remember how you two dealt with it?
We're still happily married, which is kind of amazing, because you have so much that you can't put anywhere else. Like, I look at pictures of our wedding and I'm like, I can't believe she married me. But so this was harder. I think it's harder on someone who is actually, I won't speak too much for her, but a lot of people just swim away from it fine, and they know with good reason that this is not their fault that this child had this issue, right? But some people, I mean, it's just tough because you can't help but feel that I could have done something. You know, my body failed me somehow, and I'm responsible in some way. It's often said, but hard to understand. And even, you know, Josh is 36. We still, every now and then, we'll see things that just make it, right? But again, I'm talking about us as if it's remarkable. It's, you know, it's a very common. And the other thing, there's nothing tragic in this community. What I love about this community and what I love about Zeno Mountain Farm is that there's no sense of tragedy. You don't wallow in that kind of stuff. In a lot of other places, we used to go to these support groups with parents, and it usually was the parent of what I guess was like a lighter, we'll say, disability. I think they're all profound, but they'd be the ones who would be whining the most about how their life was so hard, right? And everybody's got it tough, or I don't know if we have it harder or easier than anybody else. But one great moment for us was when we went down to Camp Jabberwocky, the communities that you and I met through Zeno Mountain Farm. We met the Halbys there. Peter and Will Halby are these great friends of ours, and Isla and Vanessa Halby. Peter worked for us as a program director for a while before they started Zeno Mountain Farm together. Actually, we were part of them starting off on Nantucket. This camp really went to Nantucket, and then they went up when they gave everything they got to this beautiful property and where they do camps for people with disabilities up in Vermont. And I think that Peter and Will convinced us, and Jean and myself, that our son is lovable and that other people got it. So, you know, that's an unbelievable gift that you wonder, you know, who's going to get this about my kid? And on a daily basis, you go to wherever, and especially someone like Josh, it's pretty visible. And we're walking, you know, I can walk now with him with one hand, and we go shopping, and we're a little bit like a museum piece. And oftentimes you'll get some parent with a kid and well-meaning, they'll say, why is he like that? And then she says, well, ask him, you know, and depending on the day, I'll say, I don't want to do this, or sure. And with that happening all the time, and people trying to be hip about disability and people not being so hip, you wonder who's going to get it. And, you know, when we're dead and gone, what's going to happen with our son? And so it's really great to have these communities. And Access Sport is like that too. This is a community for life. And so finding people like that changed our outlook. Like, wow, you know, and I don't have to apologize for Josh. I think the other day you and I were talking, and I was over talking him sometime, and that's not always the norm for me, and I apologize to him for it. But it's nice not to apologize for a disability, and to feel that, you know, I should be secure enough to say screw it. But at times you feel like, gosh, you know, this is overpowering, I'm sure, for people, and not giving them enough credit.
What kind of experience did you have with Josh as a child? How was he welcomed at school, for example?
We started out with Josh in a full inclusion program. You had to fight a lot for that. He was in with other kids of typical population kids, you know, kids without disabilities. And one school thought it'd be too hard. We thought that was ironic because she said it'd just be too hard. And then this principal had a little dog that she was making everybody in the office take care of, right? We thought, you give more attention to your dog than you would to our kid, right? And
she said it would be too hard for the school or for Josh?
She said that the school couldn't handle it. She didn't last long after that, but we didn't want to go to that school anyway. So we went to another school, and they did a pretty nice job, I think. They worked pretty hard, and it was good up until fourth grade. And then we realized that Josh was becoming nothing more than a mascot. So I thought the kids were pretty good. They have better imagination regarding disabilities when they're younger, I believe. And then when they get older, it's pretty tough. You're as insecure as hell in junior high and in high school. And so we came to this school then, Cotting School, when he was whatever fourth grade was. He was a year, fifth grade he would have been. So it was kind of a good time because, you know, he's almost at the point of becoming a mascot with these people and people being condescending from him instead of being a peer. And then here, he got some true peers, which was great because they're all people with disabilities here at this school.
What do you mean by being a mascot?
Not taking him seriously for who he was and pandering to him and condescending. And, you know, most of these kids were pretty good. We just saw kind of the advent of it coming. And we're really grateful to those early years. You know, people who weren't accustomed to it really worked hard on his behalf. And a lot of equipment went into the classrooms and things like that. And
What kind, and like how were the classes organized? Could he follow all of the classes? Did he have a pair to like?
He had a one-on-one. You know, I know there's a lot of parents who are litigious and they pride themselves on how they sued their school systems and how much they got. Their IEPs with these individual educational plans, and they would pick over these plans each year and really give it to the school system. And we wanted to advocate for Josh, but we didn't want to be those people too, making a stink all the time. So we were trying not to make him the center of attention and make everybody fall over themselves too much, but we also wanted to advocate for him. And we made like a portable carrel for him to study. And he actually was in on a lot of the things that they were studying, even news of the day. In a way, Josh was more advanced then than when he was here, right, as far as academics go. But what he gained here in this community is that he was part of a community, and he was really valued, and he had really true peers, people that were like him in the disability thing. So, you know, I think inclusion is a great thing, and you would think we'd be all for it because we live and thrive in this access sport inclusive community. But it's in education, it was hard, and we kind of made this choice.
Can he go out on his own or do any activities on his own?
He got in trouble for doing stuff on his own. He had a power chair at school, and he was supposed to deliver stuff, like, you know, deliver tissues and things like that. And he was really good at it. But he went off the reservation one day, went up to the restricted third floor. I don't know if he meant to or not, but I remember the teacher, as punishment, it was a substitute, she took the power off his chair. So it's like unbelievable. He also got in trouble another time here when they called us and said that Josh gave somebody the finger.
The middle finger.
Like F you. And we were elated because we didn't know he had that kind of dexterity. And we was like, oh, that's amazing. Josh could do that. So,
does Josh have siblings?
Josh has a sister, Hannah. She currently lives in Hawaii doing conservation work. She's been there about 6 years. And she's a good sibling. You know, at times, somehow Josh would be sitting at home when he was a kid and still manage to smack her, even though she's moving around and he's in one place. Somehow he'd managed to get her.
They fought?
Oh, yeah. But so did I. I assume you got along with your brother. You never had this kind of issue, right?
I got angry, but we didn't fight. I think that we didn't know how to fight.
Wow.
Yeah, I fought with my parents a lot, but I don't think I knew how to fight with my brother. I was just mad at something, but I didn't know if it was at him or. Yeah. But we didn't get into arguments. I was mean to him sometimes. I wasn't very tolerant, or I was in a hurry, but no, I don't think we knew how to fight. That's actually true. But I knew how to fight my parents, definitely.
Yeah, that's an art form, isn't it?
Yeah. And you have to find the words. My brother doesn't scream, he cries. So you can't scream at somebody who cries at you.
Oh, I can. Really I can, yeah. I can do it easily. When you hear it enough, you don't think you can like, oh, come on, knock it off.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course. But I mean, to me, that's not a fight. That's just like, okay, shut up. You know? I don't think telling somebody to shut up is really a fight when he should really shut up. No, but of course, there's moments where I'm like, ugh, can we stop repeating? My brother repeats a lot. So that can get a little heavy sometimes. But it's life. I love him still, and I know that it's his way of reassuring himself. He needs to have his mind organized, otherwise he gets anxious. So that's just a way of being. So
you and Hannah have, our daughter, have a lot in common. Younger of an older brother with disability, and they repeat a lot, right? But your brother's lexicon is broader. I mean, it's regular conversation, and
it depends. He can't go very far. He can't go into any abstract conversations, but he can very easily invite somebody over or like ask what you want to eat or drink. He's not physically impaired, so he can move around and he can do anything he wants, which
right.
Definitely helps with socializing and with making yourself understood without words sometimes. So
I think I recall meeting him. I don't know.
You've met him,
and I thought he conversed pretty nicely.
He's okay. He's okay. He can converse, but it's just usually about the same subjects, which would be when are we partying? Who's coming to the party? What are we going to drink at the party? What are we going to eat at the party? And what kind of party?
I'll take it.
We like celebrations. We like birthdays and any kind of event that brings people together.
That's good though. I mean, those
great.
are questions. I love that.
They are, yeah. And he converses more and more. We were on the phone the other day, and I was really surprised at how he was leading the conversation, which is very rare. He took me to places that I didn't think he could take me to. Like he answered back, or he asked me another question about my day, or it's difficult for him to talk about his day, but I guess he's learning how to ask back, not to be embarrassed himself and kind of losing.
So wait, after all these years, you're getting surprised by him. That's really cool.
I am. I really am. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then, wow.
What kind of relationship do Hannah and Josh have?
It's a good one. It's probably a little different than yours in that if they want to do something together, often need my help. You know, I'd love to say, go spend a day. You know, we visit her in Hawaii, and I want to say, go spend a day, but they're going to need some physical help from me. She can walk him. You can tell from New Jersey, but she can walk him, help assist with walking, things like that, make transfers. But it's difficult over time. And
how big is Josh?
He's about 160 pounds and 165, and he's about 5'8". He's in pretty good shape, but you know it's rigorous. That's why I used to be 6'2", and now I'm barely 6 feet tall now, and I got no knees. But yeah, you have to train to take care of Josh. Yeah, but your brother gets around great, right? He's good.
Yeah, he can't go on the streets on his own. He doesn't have autonomy in the city. We live in Paris, so we live in the city. He can't go around anywhere he wants on his own. He
can't hop the metro. Metro, what is it called?
Metro, yeah. He knows the map by heart, so I'm sure that he could go anywhere. But you know, when you don't get used to going off on your own early on, as you get older, it gets harder to push away fear and to be less aware of danger. And I think that he could be more autonomous, but I think that we were just worried for him, and we didn't really encourage that enough. I'm sure that he could do it. He used to do more trips than he does today, like from one place to another, and we'd have to rehearse really, like, so you get on the bus here and you go off here and you have to walk this street and you have to turn the third street to the left, and then so it has to be very precise, and it's like almost like a choreography. And we do it a million times, and then he takes off and he does it on his own. But you can't do that with every destination in Paris. And yeah, one day he like somebody slapped him in the face. We don't really know what happened. He was on his own, and he was going from our home to where my father works. And it's a trip that he does a lot, that he knows by heart. And sometimes he doesn't have really the sense of social barriers or like
right.
an appropriate distance. And I think that he got close to a girl because maybe he wanted to hold her hand, but in a very naive, nothing sexual, nothing.
Yeah.
But he probably just wanted to say hi. And apparently she was with someone who did not appreciate that. But he decided to slap Anton in the face.
So he reported that after to you?
Yeah. And he was panicked, which I understand, because he didn't mean wrong. He didn't really understand at all that was, I mean, you can imagine that it's just, the thing is, on the streets, people have not necessarily been exposed to disability and are not used to seeing people behave or act in a unconventional way. And that's what scares families, really, I think. And even people who themselves have a disability. I think it's just, you never know who you're going to bump into. And
do you worry that when it's just you and him, you're going to be the responsible one for all this?
It is always hard to envision the future, because Anton lives with my parents. Does Josh live with you?
Yes.
Yeah. And we always wonder, is he going to live elsewhere? I'd love for him to have a roommate, for example. I'd love for him to live with someone. I'm not even sure he wants to live with his sister, I think we'd get along. It would be great.
Yeah, I assume your parents say what we do is that we are not expecting you to
I know, but
to do this, and that there can be programs that, and it's hard for you to swallow, isn't it?
Well, it just feels normal for me. I don't want him to be living. I want the best for him, and sometimes I find some places to not be stimulating enough. They won't expect enough of him. They won't make sure that his shirt is not dirty and that he doesn't have food on his face.
Exactly.
They won't make sure that he's learning still, and he will also only be with people who have a disability, and the people who don't have a disability will be people who care for him and who are not going to be just his friends. They're going to be people who are paid to be with him, and it's fine. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I wouldn't want that for me, and I don't want that for my brother. So and I feel like it's my life,
Yeah.
So
Oh.
do you talk about it with Hannah?
Yes, we do. And Hannah says, "Are you kidding?" He's like, "What do you expect? Of course I gotta stay with him, And that's a huge thing to put on a sibling, And we have the same worries, Josh. The most physical one is that if we're not around and he goes to home, he'll be happy as a clam, but the bar is going to be held really low. He's really social, but he'll be in a power chair the rest of his life, and he'll have contractures and so all the stuff that he does that that's the other thing. I don't know if it's the same for your brother, but it may be condescending, but we continue to make choices. He's even at 36 thinking that Josh needs me to make these choices for him. But then he'll go to a camp. He'll go to Zeno, and he'll be there for a week. And and even though we're working at camp, my wife's cooking at camp, or I'm on the side, you can see he thrives, and you can see a different guy who thrives on being his own guy without any kind of interference from us. But you still make that determination that some of the greatest moments in Josh's life are because, maybe that's me saying it, but because of all these efforts we put in, and Josh can walk with me with one hand because he trains, and he's much healthier than his counterpart who would be in the same situation, so same deal as you.
Yeah. I feel like if parents don't push that way, professionals won't at all. Like some professionals can be great, they can help, they can be obviously of great presence, but the reason why some people with intellectual or physical disabilities go as far as they go is because there's family behind them.
Yeah.
I think, or that's my experience.
And there's so many families around who say to you, you're not being really responsible, and how do you know your son's happy and things like that, and we're taking our best guess at it. And I mean, when we die, it'll be tough enough, right? I don't know if putting him into some program now would help that all that much. He compared to the people in his program, Josh is like living the charmed life. He goes with us on trips, and he does all these, during the week he does so many fun things in our access sport community. So
how is it to go on vacation with Josh?
So like when we go to Hawaii to visit Hannah, and we do programming there too, so this is when you get married, right? Don't go on vacation anywhere really great that's far away, because then you'll lose your kid to that eventually. That's how we lost Hannah to that. But it's that's a 12-hour flight, and Josh never sleeps on these planes, so they're always up. But he's a great traveler otherwise. Going into the bathroom on the planes it's like Cirque du Soleil. It's just an incredible feat. Inevitably, there's a flight attendant who's knocking. It's like, "You guys okay?" And they're like, "Yeah." It's just so friggin' tiny, and you're
small,
standing and twisting, and I've been in some wild positions there. I've had my foot up over his head, on his shoulder, and it's just unbelievable. And Josh isn't the worst. He's not the hardest. I mean, we had some people at camps we did with, before, and they were, over 200 pounds and banging around. And
I just also had a last thought about what you said earlier, when people tell you that it's irresponsible, or is he really happy? And I feel like, how do you know until you try?
Right.
Like, some people need other people to have experiences. There has to be experiences that aren't just about everyday care. There have to be experiences that are about getting a thrill,
This is our access sport is all like that. None of this should work It's like when we first took Josh windsurfing, I worked on so many fabrications and ideas, and eventually I just picked him up and said, this is going to work. And it did. There's a lot of faith that goes into this. And yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the most confident kind of person. I like humility. But in regards to this stuff, I know what we can do. People come to us and they want to do more traditional adaptive sports, and they say, I just want to go kayaking, right? Which is a pretty standard adaptive sport. And we look at people and say, shoot higher here. Let's, more times than not, we can surprise people and get them doing stuff almost somewhat independently in these sports, and we can do it well. Much like with Josh, I'm making a choice for people and saying, you will like this, and just hoping that I'm right? So
it sounds like Josh needs a lot of help on a daily basis, and I was wondering if you and your wife Jean were ever able to go away. There's the camp moments, but are there other moments during the year where you can take off?
But it's not like I don't think we crave that either. I mean, if we go for dinner, I'd like it. If I didn't go with Josh and her, I'd feel really like something missing. And it's interesting. Like we know a lot of parents, and some they quickly go to a group home setting or something like that. And a lot of that doesn't work. Some does, and some make it work. But then we know some people, and even some people of some considerable wealth, who could do a lot with farming people out, but choose not to. And I mean, we're really lucky. We can go anywhere with Josh, and we do. But there's some people, they can't go anywhere. They're still with an older child up with them 3 times a night, 4 times a night, and still doing all the work. And that's something, right?
How has it been to be the parent to children who didn't have the same needs?
You spend a lot of time trying to tell your other child that they're the center of attention as well. And sometimes you bend over and, I don't know. My failing is that I've yelled at home in moments of frustration too many times, I think. And I think that messed up both of our kids. I don't know how much, but I don't know if I'm a lousy parent or good or not. But, none of this is in the manual. Well, yes, parenting's not in the manual, and every kid has something. But I'm sure having a brother with a disability screwed you up as much as it screwed up our family and screwed up our daughter. But then it's also equally added to the richness of your life and probably made you a more empathetic and driven person, all kinds of things, right?
Absolutely.
You might be Emily in Paris if it weren't for this.
Oh, God.
Speak to that.
Did you, as a parent, get some support?
Yeah. I mean, well, my wife's pretty private on this kind of stuff. And I think as outgoing as I seem to be, I probably hide behind her. And, I'm okay with being sort of introverted. And, if something happens, I'd rather just deal with it and being alone rather than get a lot of people in to help. So early on, we had respite. We had some great people who come in and help out. Once a week, we'd go on a date, that kind of thing. Then Josh got kind of bigger. If I wanted to do something, I could tell anybody like Nate Berry or Chris Murto, who I work with. I could say, could you watch Josh? And they could, but it's pretty much us.
What about psychological support?
What are you saying?
I don't sometimes one needs to go talk to someone that's not a family member.
Yeah, we've availed ourselves of, especially in getting on the same page as far as how to deal with Josh. We did that kind of counseling. That was very helpful.
What happens in that kind of counseling? What do you talk about?
We're just talking about the art of a timeout. We haven't done that in a while, but giving Josh a moment to himself without making it look like it's being too punitive, and trying to show Josh that the world's going to go on without him yelling and stuff like that. And getting on the same page to do that is tough as a parents. Any kind of discipline, unquote, is pretty tough to enforce. I took the role of being the tough one, and Jean more of the nurturing one when it came to this kind of stuff. And that's not good, right? Because then you don't enjoy always being the hardliner while someone else is being the one who's like that.
When you say that you yelled a lot and that you think it screwed up your children, how do you think it did that?
Well, maybe I could retract it. I wasn't like screaming all the time.
No,
I'm just
no,
saying
but
there are times where you live under the illusion that you have unlimited authority when these things happen. So I think when anybody yells at anything, when you yell or anything like that, you think, well, okay, this will shell them. They'll know I'm serious, right? And so there might be a moment where Josh was getting ready for bed and then was frustrated and maybe in the bathroom or something, just in my face yelling or crying, right? And, after several years of this, you're just going to, after you're in there for 5 minutes and it's just it's a freight train that's not stopping, you're like, so yelling just promotes more yelling on his part, my part, and that's what I meant, When you grow up, you think your parents may not be the greatest or they are the greatest, but, when you have kids and, have this non-common, you think they were pretty good,
And we do what we can.
Yeah. And you could always do more. This was a theme when I was a minister, but you could always do more, you could always be better. But I think in a relative sense, I bust my ass on this. And Gene does too. And, Josh puts his best in. Hannah puts her best in. And, we're a really, really close family. And as much, we talked about this before, that I don't know. I don't know if I could say you have a disability in that you are so close to your brother, or that I have a disability and that I'm so close to Josh. I guess I could say I have a disability because my knees hurt and I bone on bone when playing sports or whatever. But as much as someone could live at a disability being close to a person, I could say pretty confidently I'm there, and that Gene's there. And by the weight of your heart, I could say that you're there, and that should count for something. We should take that off the table in these discussions, and we shouldn't be, like, oh, well, what does he think? It should count for what we think, and our experiences should count, And I think I said this before. There's some parents that they're just flat out selfish. I've seen people who throw their kids at us. Here, you do something with it, and outward appearances of them wanting to just get away from their kids, and you can't see the rest of their life, but. I think a lot of parents in this program I see are just, they're doing great jobs. And at times it's not enough, and at times it is. But, we're all human, and I think I give myself a break. I do. I guess that's the religious side of me, too. I know you're not big on this, but I count on forgiveness in the universe. I don't trivialize it, but I think that the universe does bend towards justice, and I feel that there are unlimited chances to find newness in life, that each day you can start again, that a life can be redeemed in an instant, that I could be a total scumbag, just evil, pure evil kind of person, but then I could have a moment where something hit me and I could turn around, and I think that a life can turn around like that.
How do you think religion has accompanied you in this life journey, especially as a father?
Really good question. Being a minister, of the religious sort, you lose a little of your own personal kind of spiritual stuff because there's a lot of mechanics to what you do. If you're leading a church service, in the front of the church, leading this church service, sometimes you're focused on mechanics. Like, okay, someone's in the choir and they look like they're going to throw up and we're praying, or whatever, or this happens at this point, and at the same time you're trying to be present. I think the trick to life is being present. It's living in the moment, which is impossible, but you strive for that. And so you're torn at times, and there's times when you're in worship where you're totally present, and other times where you're when you're in the throes of a wild moment with someone with a disability or a challenge like that, you're not always most focused person. Whatever you have built up as far as spirituality, whatever seems to go out the window, and you're at the whims of the universe, and you're being tossed about like you have no idea, and you're reacting to life, and there's no time for any kind of contemplative thought, no time for any reflection, and you have these kind of 3 a.m. despair moments sometimes in the middle of the day. And again, I'm not complaining. I think people have that with or without disability in their life, right? But it seems to put things at a pace where you're not the most reflective. But then again, there's times in the middle of that where in the worst, you're almost thankful for the focus of these worst moments, these moments where you're saying, like Josh's head wasn't necessarily growing at the right rate, and you feel this acute kind of anxiety and pain, and you're almost thankful for that because it makes you less numb, and you're alive, and to me, sometimes there's a weird comfort in there that I would attribute to some sort of higher power entering. But I don't think God heals in an obvious sense. That if there is a God, God heals you in just knowing how to deal with the situation or giving perspective. Right? If I have perspective, I'm okay. What's the worst that could happen, and then being okay with that, or what's the best that could happen and being okay.
I don't believe in God, but I agree with many things you're saying.
Well, thank you, Reverend.
No, it's true. I mean, it's a philosophy of life too.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you envision the next years, the future?
This next coming year or years?
How do you envision, I guess, the next 10, 15 years?
Let me see. I'm going to Paris. No,
Yes.
I don't think I've ever left the country.
Really?
I'm in Hawaii, but I went over the border to Canada once, and I don't see myself ever retiring because I think there's too much work to do. I love this community. I love our work, and I love the purpose we have. And I like that in this community, my sense of family is truly broadened. Especially in the United States, I don't know what it's like in France, but the family is idolatrized. It's just idolatry that you've got family first, right? And a lot of people hide behind their family. Caring about other people is an aside, and I think family, to me, is supposed to help you look outside and care about more people. So I love that sense in this community that there's more people I've grown to care about. And to say you truly love somebody is a lot, right? And, I think I can say I love you to a lot of people and not mean it, but because the depth of it is just extraordinary, and it's a lot of junk and crap. But if you feel it, it's really something. And I get to know people here on a level, so you truly love them. People I wouldn't be friends with before, but you get to see people on a different level. You see their vulnerabilities, and you see what makes them tick. And I want to be a part of that for the rest of my life. So I'm in. I should do it. I should do another one for you. Can I do my mic one? Okay, so I don't think everybody deserves a microphone. I think you earn it. We work at a camp in Boston Harbor. They have lunch, and some people just grab the mic and just there's like things like that. And one side of this is that there's people that are being kept to the side and deserve a voice. That's one thing. But then there's other people who need to get in front of other people and need to be noticed in a way that's not necessarily the best. So in our community, we like to push people to succeed and actually to accomplish something. And like if we were doing dance, right? Same thing as if someone's going to sing a song and they just rambled on and made up something that they really didn't struggle, or we didn't train them to perform on a higher level. I think we would be doing a disservice. Same thing in sport. If we put people in the field and applaud because they come out once a year, they don't train and they play in a game and they kick a goal. I don't think that's worth applauding. That's like, I don't think that deserves a microphone. I think you have to earn it by training and practicing and putting your time in. And that level needs to be held, I think, in the disability community. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. If your brother was going to make a speech, right, we'd work hard on it, and it would be, or if he was going to do an interview, right, we would make sure that his questions weren't of the party variety, that we expanded beyond that, and he worked hard on that, And if Josh was going to play in a game, a soccer match, and people were going to be watching, and we wanted to see this and see what he could do, if he didn't go all the way up and down the field several times, but just cherry-picked and sat in front of a goal to kick it and everybody applauded, it would be a disappointment. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. It does. I feel like often people with a disability aren't considered as having potentials. I've learned to do differently, but I did think like that as a teenager. I think about my brother. I wasn't able to see what he was capable of because I probably was never taught to, and probably because I was too hurt, and probably because I was in a kind of rejection mode. But I know that there's been a change to that doing a million projects and getting interested. But I feel like the reflex usually and very often with even babies, like young children who have a disability, whether it's physical or intellectual, it's the same label, disabled, and people look at what's wrong. People look at what doesn't work. People look at what needs to potentially be fixed, and nobody should be fixed. People with a variety of disabilities can achieve.
Or to say, to my disservice, at times to say, you have arrived. You really, you're really there. But then...
And there's also levels of achievement. Sometimes an achievement is to climb up a stair, like, or it's to get your fork to your mouth, really, or it's to fall asleep without having an anxiety crisis. For some people that is a huge effort, and we should also level our expectations. I remember, I don't know why I'm thinking about this. I was in Los Angeles maybe 10, 12 years ago, and I was walking by a store, and it was written on the window, "Only rats can run a rat race." Not everybody can be on the same track. Like we don't all have the same abilities, but does it mean that one is better than the other? No.
Yeah. So you are highly reflective about life with your brother. You think about him a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, has it affected your relationships? As a kid, did you ever were you ever ridiculed, or did you ever?
No. What I had eating disorders for like 15 years, which is long for a 28-year-old, and I didn't know where that came from, and there was a need to understand our family and what feelings could be so strong that I lost control over myself too, and I had also a disability in a way. Like it really eating disorders can be very, very, very hard to live with, and they're invisible.
You've earned your place at the table.
And I went to see a million psychologists, and every time I talked about these eating disorders, or every time I talked about my life, the only thing that, so professionals, like people who should be helping you to see more, always put the blame on Anton. It was really, I heard it as a blame, it's like you're a kid who didn't have as much attention as you needed, you lacked love, you lacked this, and he's the source of that. And so for a long time, that's probably why I rejected my family. Also, I was like, well, if that's the source of the problem, I have to get away from it. And it's not true. I missed him, and I never.
But he was like gasoline on the fire.
Yeah,
Oh.
It's like when people hear disability, that's the only thing they see. It's like the evidence, like nose in the middle of your face. It's like, this is the reason why things go wrong, and it's so it's just not true.
Wow. And
so I feel like that took many years away from me and from our family, and you can't go back in time. Like, it's never going to change. But here I am exploring the world and doing this project and hoping that with all of our life stories, we can help each other.
Yeah, did you really think they were lost, though? You probably discount how the moments of goodness right there, right?
I know there were, but honestly, for my teen years and 20s, I remember a lot of pain. But I know that there were happy moments.
Yeah.
I do. But I also know that it could have been less hard. I don't think that all that we've been through was all that necessary. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be the one crying.
So your intent with these is to make people cry. You've succeeded. It's easy to say pain isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't think I'd change much if I could, right? And we're all better people for it. don't get to know you. You're extraordinary, and I'm sure you are that much more because of this. Yeah, people should know that, and what a luxury it is to talk like this, because we don't usually. I don't think either of us go on like wearing this stuff on our sleeve, and I think we're happy with our lives and don't feel that, at least I don't think that's anything extraordinary happened to me, and that what we've done is that remarkable. And you the same way. We're just folks. Yeah, we're at the end of the school day here in Cotting, so you can hear people leaving, but it's only going to get worse, I think.
Okay. Do you have a final word for this conversation?
I don't have a final word. I think it's just extraordinary talking to you like this, and like a luxury to talk about our lives like this. And I'd say God bless, but something higher bless us all, I guess. I'm not a God bless kind of minister, anyways. But thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Russ. It was wonderful to talk to you. Thanks. And back to school.
That was great.
That was great.
Was that good?
It was wonderful.
Oh, good.
You've been listening to Out of Sync, exploring life through disability, one story at a time. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Transcripts are available on YouTube, and French language stories on Decali, Decales. I'm Léa Hirschfeld. Thanks for listening.